I handed in my badge on a Tuesday morning. No dramatic speech, no final email to the team, just walked to HR, signed the separation form, and left the building I'd kept running for 12 years. The unit manager who'd put me on a written warning 3 weeks earlier didn't even know I was gone until second shift started calling her at home. I started in the ICU when the electronic charting system was still just binders and hope. Learned every pump, every protocol, every vendor contact. Trained so many new nurses, I stopped counting around year 7. I wasn't management, didn't want to be, but I was the person you called when a doctor's order didn't make sense, or a family needed someone who could explain what comfort measures actually meant. I didn't do it for recognition. I did it because patients deserved a unit that worked. Then they hired Stephanie. She came from a corporate hospital group with a shiny resume full of words like optimization and care redesign. No ICU experience. I didn't hold that against her, not at first. I figured she'd learn. I figured she'd listen. First week, she introduced a new charting system. Mandatory rollout. No pilot program. I flagged 3 medication pathways that didn't align with our formulary. Sent her a detailed email with screenshots and pharmacy references. She replied in 2 sentences.
Change is always difficult. Let's focus on solutions, not problems.
I let it go. 2 weeks later, I caught a near miss. New grad almost pushed 10 units of insulin instead of 1 because the drop-down defaulted to the wrong concentration. I'd been mentoring her, told her to slow down, double-check everything the system autofilled. I went to Stephanie with the incident report, not to blame anyone, just to get the interface fixed before someone died. She closed her laptop, looked at me like I'd interrupted something important.
This feels like resistance.
I'm sorry?
You've been here a long time. I get that you're used to doing things a certain way, but we need people who can adapt.
I added calm. I'm not resisting the system. I'm telling you it has a safety flaw.
And I'm telling you that I need team players, not people who undermine leadership.
I didn't respond. What was there to say? She reassigned me off the mentorship schedule the next day. I picked up the extra shifts, covered the gaps when people called out, still answered questions from the new hires, just not officially. Stephanie started showing up on the floor more, not to help, to observe. She'd stand by the nurse's station with a tablet, making notes, watching who took breaks when, who charted late, who asked too many questions. One Friday, she pulled me aside after a particularly brutal shift. We'd lost 2 patients. Families were wrecked. The team was exhausted.
I noticed you didn't use the new escalation pathway for the code on bed 6.
And I stared at her. We were running a code. I used the emergency protocol.
The new pathway is part of the emergency protocol now.
It adds 4 steps and a digital checklist. The patient was coding.
We'll discuss this at your next evaluation.
The breaking point came 3 weeks later. I'd flagged another issue, this time with equipment. Our backup defibrillator had failed inspection twice, but the replacement kept getting delayed. I sent Stephanie a polite email asking if she could expedite the purchase order. She called me into her office the next morning. There was already a printed document on her desk, official letterhead.
This is a written warning for creating a negative work environment and displaying resistance to organizational change.
I read it twice. My hands didn't shake. I was too stunned. I reported a safety issue.
You've reported 17 safety issues in the last 2 months. You've questioned every initiative I've introduced. You've made it clear you don't respect my leadership.
That's not true.
It's how it's being perceived.
She pushed a pen toward me.
Sign at the bottom.
I signed. Not because I agreed, because I knew arguing would only make it worse. I went home that night and didn't sleep. 12 years. 12 years of holding that unit together, of catching errors, of teaching, of staying late when staffing fell apart, of absorbing family grief so the new nurses didn't burn out in their first month. And now I was the problem. I thought about fighting, filing a grievance, going over her head. But I knew how it would play out. She had the title. I had a personnel file with a written warning in it. So I made a different choice. Monday morning, I stopped compensating. New hire asked me a question about a complex drip calculation. I smiled and said, check the protocol binder. It's all in there. Schedule fell apart because 2 people called out. I worked my assigned shift, didn't offer to stay. Equipment malfunction. I documented it and moved on. Committee meeting I used to run. I sent my regrets. I followed every rule exactly, charted on time, took my breaks, left when my shift ended. I didn't mentor, didn't troubleshoot, didn't fill the gaps. I just stopped. It took 3 days for people to notice. A new grad came to me near tears because she couldn't figure out why a patient's potassium wasn't correcting. I used to walk her through the whole clinical picture, renal function, medications, fluids. This time I said, "Did you page the attending?" She looked confused.
I thought you'd know.
"It's not my patient. You should escalate." She did. The attending was frustrated. She didn't have the information ready. She stayed an extra 2 hours charting the aftermath. She didn't ask me for help again. I updated my resume that weekend, applied to 3 positions, got 2 interviews within a week. Stephanie started having to take floor shifts. Not because she wanted to, because staffing was imploding. 2 experienced nurses had transferred to other units. 3 new grads quit within a month. No one was volunteering for open shifts anymore. I watched her struggle with a central line dressing change, watched her fumble with the IV pump she didn't know how to override, watched her page pharmacy 4 times for something I could have answered in 10 seconds. I didn't offer to help. The medication error I'd warned about finally happened. Not fatal, thank God, but serious enough that the hospital opened an investigation. Stephanie tried to blame the new grad who pushed the dose, but the error report trail led straight back to the system design I flagged months earlier. My emails were in the file. Her dismissive responses were too. I got the offer from the competing hospital on a Thursday. Better pay, better staffing ratios. They wanted me to help lead their ICU education program. I accepted on the spot. Gave my 2 weeks' notice that afternoon. Professional, polite, no explanation beyond pursuing another opportunity. Stephanie called me into her office.
This feels very sudden.
Wait.
Is this about the written warning? Because we can discuss.
There's nothing to discuss. I've accepted another position. She looked rattled. Actually rattled.
You're one of our most experienced staff. If you leave, we'll need time to transition your responsibilities.
I didn't laugh. Didn't even smile. I don't have any special responsibilities. I'm just a staff nurse. You said so yourself. I worked my last 2 weeks by the book. No overtime, no extra tasks, no goodbye party. On my final shift, 4 new hires were working without a single experienced nurse to back them up. Stephanie was in her office on a conference call. A patient started decompensating, and no one knew how to manage the ventilator settings. They paged the attending. It took 12 minutes. I clocked out at 7:30 p.m. exactly. 3 weeks later, my former coworkers started messaging me. Everything's falling apart. Little more people quit. We didn't realize how much you held together. One of them told me Stephanie had been reassigned, not fired, just moved to administrative projects, a polite way of saying she wasn't managing people anymore. The hospital had started investigating the unit's performance metrics, error rates, turnover, patient complaints. Turns out when you lose the person who was quietly catching problems before they became disasters, the disasters just happen. My phone rang on a Thursday afternoon. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer.
This is David Chen, Chief Nursing Officer at Metro General. I'm calling about your former position in the ICU.
I stopped walking. I was in the parking lot of my new hospital, heading home after a training session I'd just led.
I'm aware you've moved on, but I wanted to reach out personally. We've completed our internal review of the unit's performance decline and, well, your name came up. A lot. The staff we interviewed were very clear about the role you played, the mentorship, the institutional knowledge, the safety interventions. We made a mistake. I made a mistake. We should have listened when you raised concerns.
I didn't respond.
We'd like to discuss bringing you back. We're prepared to offer a significant increase in compensation, a senior clinical educator title, direct reporting to my office, not unit management, and we're making changes to how we handle concerns from experienced staff.
The offer was good, really good. 6 months ago, I would have felt vindicated, triumphant even. Now I just felt tired. I appreciate the call, but I'm happy where I am.
We could match whatever they're offering. Exceed it if...
It's not about the money, Mr. Chen. Silence on the other end.
Then what would it take? What would bring you back?
I thought about that question, really thought about it. Nothing, because the problem was never the pay or the title. The problem was being told I was the problem when I was holding everything together, and you can't unring that bell.
I understand you're angry.
I'm not angry. I'm just done. I hope you find what you're looking for. I really do. But it's not me. I ended the call. Stood there in the parking lot for a minute, phone in my hand. Again, I drove home. They called twice more over the next 2 weeks. I didn't answer. The third time, I blocked the number. I'm 3 months into my new role now. I'm teaching again, mentoring again, building the kind of safety culture I always believed in. My old unit is still struggling. They've hired travelers at triple the cost to fill the gaps. Stephanie's still on payroll somewhere, managing nothing. I don't feel victorious. I just feel free. Because, here's the truth, they never tell you about these situations. You don't win by being louder. You don't win by fighting harder. Sometimes you win by stopping. By refusing to hold up a system that's trying to crush you. By letting the weight fall exactly where it belongs. I didn't destroy Stephanie's career. I didn't sabotage anything. I just stopped catching the pieces. And gravity did the rest. Thank you so much for listening to this story. If this resonated with you, if you've ever been the person holding things together while being told you're the problem, I'd love to hear about it in the comments. And if you're listening from somewhere in the world right now, tell me where you are and what time it is there. I love knowing this community spans every time zone. Take care of yourselves. And remember, your competence is not a weapon someone else gets to use against you.